Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Asus ROG Gladius III wireless, seen here, completely naked. And this is an unboxing video and review where I'll be talking to you about the features and facets of this mouse, as well as covering a few points of interest. For example, this wireless mouse comes with hot swappable switches. There's two different sorts of switches included in the box, and you can swap them out to your preference, and that makes it interesting for a number of reasons. But there are other highlights too. For example, this is a larger than average wireless gaming mouse with an asymmetrical design which makes it comfortable in the hand. It also has 6 programmable buttons and some specs that include up to 26,000 dpi, 400 IPS, 50 Gs acceleration, 6 programmable buttons, and it weighs in at 89 grams, which isn't terribly light, but it is lighter than some. It also has some interesting etching on the side that you'll see with some RGB lighting, and there's 3 RGB lighting zones. It has a reasonable battery life, especially when used over Bluetooth, and is convenient to charge thanks to that USB-C connection. Now, when I first got this out of the box, I was really interested in it because of the switch setup. This is particularly interesting, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that in a second, but also because of the shape of it. As I said, it's larger than average. And I don't mean it's massive. I just mean the design of it sits really nicely in the hand. It's kind of tall off the desk, which means that it sort of pushes up into your palm and is particularly comfortable if you have a palm grip style, which is what I do. But it will also work with claw grip and fingertip grip as well, so there's another option. In the box, you also get some extra PTFE feet. These are 100% Teflon, nice and slick and easy to use, and ROG stickers as well if you're into that, which, to be fair, these are pretty nice looking stickers, although I'm not sure where you're meant to put them. Putting them on the mouse would be a bit weird. And then a little instruction manual. Now, this mouse is a wireless version of the Gladius III, so there's already a wired version, and that one is lighter at 79 grams, but obviously this offers more connectivity options in the fact that it has both Bluetooth and obviously low latency connection too. Here you can see those PTFE feet a bit more. So what you're seeing is that you can swap out several parts of this mouse, which will potentially help with the longevity of it. So you can swap the feet and you can swap the switches. So if you're worried about purchasing a mouse because you're concerned that over time the switches might wear out and then you'll get double click issues with them and then it won't be registering your clicks properly, then the Gladius III wireless might be an interesting choice because you can take those switches out yourself and replace them. So you can buy other switches of varying types. It fits with both 3 and 5 pin switches, as I'll show you later on, and then you can swap them out and obviously fix that problem, which means that long term you can keep this mouse running for more. Also, what you'll see is it's potentially possible to swap the battery out as well, so you really could keep this thing going and going. It's also built with a zero gap design between the switches and the buttons, which means that it's an instant actuation and a very satisfying click. I'll show you the removal process for the switch. It's fairly straightforward. There's a couple of rubber caps on the underside, and under there you'll find some screws that need to be taken out. You'll also note at the back there's a little USB dongle held in place with a magnet. So there's a magnetic dock at the back there where you can take that USB dongle out. I didn't do this when removing the plate underneath to start with, so it just falls out. So I'd recommend taking it out before you do this. You'll also note obviously large PTFE feet on the underside, and there are buttons for both pairing with Bluetooth devices. You can pair up to 3 different Bluetooth devices with it, and a profile button that allows you to switch between 5 different onboard profiles. There's plenty of buttons on here and lots of potential options. You have a DPI button on top and obviously the side thumb buttons as well. Now, to get the housing off it, it was a bit fiddly. You have to sort of pull it from the back once you've got those screws undone. You see the dongle just fell out there as I said it would. And then you can get access to what you need to. You'll see the red switches included. Those are ROG micro switches, but you also get some Omron micro optical switches included. The black ones are included in the box, so you get the choice to swap out between those depending on which ones you prefer, but also the potential to swap with other ones in future. In the middle at the rear you'll also see the battery, and you'll see there's some connections that make it potentially possible to remove and replace that in future. So that's nice because it means you'll be able to keep this mouse going. If you're worried that over time the battery's going to run out, you don't necessarily need to with this one because it should be fairly straightforward to replace. This isn't something I tried because this is only a loan device. It has to go back to Asus after I've used it. But I think it's worth highlighting that it might be potentially possible. Now, you can't remove the side thumb buttons, but you can swap out these switches, standard left and right clicks. So that's pretty cool. And I'll show you some close-up shots of them. As I said, you can use either 3-pin or 5-pin. Actually, the ones they've included are the 2 different sorts as well. The 5-pin is a little bit more fiddly to get in, from my experience, as what you'll see in a second. But it's nice to have that option to go between the 2, which is pretty neat, I think. So here you'll see a close-up view of what it looks like taken apart. You'll also notice some ridging along the side of the mouse, and it gives a nice grip to it as well when in use. At the rear, you'll see the connections for the battery and the potential to be able to remove that. And then an interesting look at the mouse wheel. I'll show you that in a bit more detail in a minute, because that has a really opaque design to the RGB lighting, which is quite interesting. So you obviously get the switch puller in the box here. You can see the little silver tweezers. That makes it fairly easy to pull the switches out. And here you can see the 2 variants side by side. The red ROG micro switches on the left and the Omron optical switches on the right. So it gives you a choice of what you're installing and what you use. And I'm just going to show you the difference between them in terms of the sort of setup and the shape, because you can see the difference in the pin setup, slightly different. But it's pretty cool that they've designed the mouse to be swappable and hot swappable as well, so you can do it while it's plugged in or turned on. And you'll see the shape and difference between those. So you've got 3-pin and 5-pin set up there. So obviously offers a bit of flexibility in terms of what switches you're using. Now, I stuck for the most part with the red ones. I found them to be quite nice. Satisfying action to them. As I said, they've designed the buttons themselves to have a 0 gap, so there's a real small distance between pressing the button and activating the switch, which is certainly very satisfying, and it's ideal use case for something like this. Now, this is designed to be a low latency mouse to give you instant actuation and a really satisfying button press, and ensure a good accuracy during gaming. Now, I used it in both wired and USB-C connections for gaming, because obviously you get the best latency reduction there, so there's really low latency in those modes. They've also said that they've ensured that the switches have been checked and inspected to make sure there's a very small deviation between them, so that they give the same sort of click response. Now, what you'll see is a little bit of a look at the mouse wheel. As I said, quite an opaque, unusual opaque design to the RGB lighting, which is quite interesting. It doesn't sort of glow really brightly. It has a very understated design to it, which is actually very appealing and very nice. And so here's another look at the process for removing the switches. Very simply, they just tug out. There's no hassle to them. Obviously, they're not soldered in, and so it's very simple to be able to take those out. And again, another close-up shot of the overall look of the thing. Now, you'll also note the RGB lighting zones. There are 3 RGB lighting zones that you'll see: the mouse wheel, the logo at the rear, and the side etching on the lettering, which I'll show you in a minute. Fairly understated in terms of that setup. The push fit for the pins and the switches is a little bit fiddly with the 5 pins, as I said earlier on. Pretty awkward to get in at first, especially for someone as clumsy as me, but it is possible to just push them in with your hands. You just need to make sure they're clicked into place. And those side switches for the left and right thumb buttons, however, are not removable, so you can't swap those out. But the main buttons, which are obviously going to get the most wear and tear over time, can be swapped out. Now, the switches come with a 70 million click guarantee, so there is a lot of click guarantee on there. But obviously, if there's wear and tear over time and you feel like suffering with double click issues, which I know people have a concern with Omron switches and other switches over a long period of time, then you obviously have the option to swap them, which is very nice. A mouse wheel I also really like. It has a very good textured feel to it, a nice response, and it also just moves smoothly in the hand. But I really like the sort of subtle RGB lighting zone glow from it. It's very understated and certainly not in your face. Now, putting the cap back on was a bit more straightforward once you worked out how you do it. It basically just clicks into place, and here you can see a little bit of that RGB lighting. down the side. So it has some ROG etching on it, which says Republic of Gamers, Dare to Play, and other things just down the side there. And it's a very subtle RGB lighting, which I will show you in a second. You get to see the lighting basically backlighting up this etched wording on the very edge of it. It's an interesting aesthetic. And here you can see a little bit of that dock again. As I said, this is a magnetic dock, so when you're not using the USB dongle, you can just pop it into that dock with relative ease, and then it's just held in place there. And it's obviously nice to have that option to be able to tuck that away when not in use. The device also comes with an extender cable, so you've got a USB-C connection to plug it in and charge it, and then you have a little extender dock that you can put that USB dongle into, and then obviously you have easy access to that, so you only theoretically need to use one USB port on your PC. Now you have a nice bit of sort of ridging on the right hand side, which is quite rough, and the result is it actually sits nicely in the hand. But one of the things I found is that the shell itself is quite smooth. Now this doesn't result in it being slippery, but what it does is it picks up a lot of oils and things from the hand. If you're eating or doing anything else while gaming, it will also get on there too. So it can get a bit mucky, but it is fairly easy to clean. On the left hand side, you'll see some of that etching for the lettering. And again, it's ridged, but what you'll see is the shape and the height of the thing. It has a nice bit of a curve to the way it sits in the hand. As I said earlier in the video, it pushes up into the palm, which is more comfortable if you use a palm grip and a fingertip grip, and I found it just sits really nicely there. Now you see some of the button action. There's not a massive amount of play in it. It's very comfortable and it just clicks really nicely. There's a really good bit of click action, instant response, and a really good actuation. Also found it really accurate for gaming, and certainly a lot of fun to play on Rainbow Six Siege and other games of fast-paced nature. And obviously it has that bonus of the wireless freedom. Those PTFE feet are also very slick, which makes it agile, moves around the desk nicely. But obviously it is a little weightier than some of the other wireless mice I've tried recently. Certainly a lot heavier than something like the Logitech Superlight, coming in at 89 grams. It is a bit heavier than those. However, I didn't really note a massive problem with it. It's not super heavy. The RGB I also found is quite intelligent, and it turns off when you're not moving it. And it turns off quite quickly to the point that it's obviously saving battery life. Battery life I found to be a bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes it lasts a decent amount of time, but it is actually designed to work better when you're using it in Bluetooth mode than in wireless. So it's not quite as long as other mice I've tried. The SteelSeries Aerox 3 still sticks with me as being the most impressive in terms of battery life, because that thing just kept going and going, and the intelligence that it had for saving battery life worked really well. But you can get up to 55 hours of use out of this in 2.4 GHz wireless mode with this USB dongle, and you'll see the connection there, or 85 hours in Bluetooth. And that's with the RGB off though, so if you're using the RGB on, that's obviously going to run it out quicker, which is obviously a bit of a problem. And the RGB, as I said, is quite nice, so it's a shame to have to turn it off to save battery life. However, because it's USB-C connection, it's really straightforward to be able to plug in, so there's certainly no issues with plugging it in when you need to, and it is fairly convenient because of that connection, so it's really straightforward to do. Also comes with ROG's paracord cable, which is very floppy and flexible and lightweight as well, so it doesn't weigh you down. But here you can see a little bit of what I was talking about with the RGB lighting, because I actually had to keep pressing the buttons to activate it so that you could see when I was capturing the footage. So, an enjoyable mouse with a nice lot of features to it, especially the fact you can swap out the switches, comfortable fit in the hand, especially if you've got a larger hand and you like to keep your hand off the desk. I found it to be very comfortable for gaming. And now I'm going to dive into the Armoury Crate software and show you what you can do with that. And here we are in the ROG Armoury Crate software, and I'd love to show you how this works, but I can't because it's not bloody working. And so now I can't show you anything apart from a blank screen, which is really handy. If you go down into here, you'll see the update center, and you can update the mouse. But for some reason, I'm stuck on this wireless update. I've updated it 3 times and it's not made any difference, which is absolutely fantastic and obviously very handy. So I can go in here and I can't do anything, which is very silly. I can record a macro, but I can't assign it to any of the buttons or show you any of the settings, which is very, very handy. So what I'm going to do instead is show you some screenshots I took from when it was actually working. And then we're going to zoom in and pretend that this is how it works. So this is the wireless settings for the mouse. Obviously you can see you have multiple tabs. You have buttons, performance, lighting, calibration, power, firmware updates. You can adjust the various different buttons in here, and you get a selection of options to choose from. Media playback button, keyboard function, which is a button press on the keyboard, Windows shortcuts. You can assign stealth, you can disable the buttons, and you'll note there's a thing for macros. So if you recorded macros under the other section, you can assign a macro here. The next tab is the DPI performance levels. You'll see you can set 4 different DPI levels. As I said, it goes up to a maximum of 26,000 DPI. The polling rate is also set to 1000 Hertz, and you can turn angle snapping on and off. Now you have a DPI button on top. You can click to switch between these levels, and obviously you can assign various different levels to your mouse. You then have multiple RGB effects: static, breathing, color cycle, reactive, rainbow, comment, battery mode, partition, aurora sync. Now, as I said, turning RGB lighting off maximizes battery life. You'll note that you can also reduce the brightness, which is obviously going to have an effect on it. It's set to 50%, which is fairly bright, and it delivers a nice sort of aesthetic from that too. You then have surface calibration and adjustable lift-off distance, so you can go between low and high. I didn't find this made much difference, to be honest, and it just certainly doesn't tell you what the lift-off difference is. And then you have a power mode, so you can set it so that the lighting alerts you when the battery reaches a certain percentage, and also that it will go to sleep to save battery life too. These are handy options for improving your battery life. So there you go, the Gladius III wireless. It is a very nice mouse, comfortable to use, accurate, capable, and has some interesting highlights to it that include the ability to switch the buttons. The Armoury Crate software is unfortunately not working for me. It is useless at this point in time, but it was working when I was actually gaming and working with the mouse. I don't know why it stopped working now. Quite frustrating, but that might happen to you too. I'm probably thinking that maybe uninstall and reinstall and we'll fix it. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.